I have some terrible news that most of us, including myself, doesn't ever want to fully acknowledge, but we have to at some point. And that is that we're all gonna die. Man, that sounds bad when you say it out loud, but it's true. We're all gonna die, and some of us are gonna die miserable deaths. Man, that's one hell of an intro for a video. So recently, I'm laying in bed, I can't sleep, and I'm like, you know what? I've had this book for a while, and I should probably just listen to the audiobook, because honestly, it's a beast of a book, and maybe I should just throw it on the audiobook and I can listen to it. It'll help me go to sleep, and everything will be okay. So I turn on this book that I did not know apparently was a terrible dystopian thriller, and it scared the living hell out of me. I'm talking about the book Outlive by Peter Attia. So this book is Peter Attia's attempt to recreate, to change, to overhaul the entire way that we think about health. But here's why it scared the hell out of me. All right, so Peter Attia, he tells this story, and he talks about this woman who maybe were in her early 60s, something like that, loved gardening, loved being outside, doing things, but unfortunately, because she was getting a little bit older, she was gardening, she slipped, she fell, and she broke something in her shoulder. Now, doesn't seem like that big of a deal, and maybe it wasn't, but because of her slow recovery and all of that, that shoulder pain turned into back pain, which turned into hip pain, and it just kind of got worse very, very quickly. And she went from someone that was pretty active to not active at all. In fact, she would just sit in the house most of the days because she was in so much pain. Now, arguably, you could say that the reasoning for what happened next was because of the fact that she didn't have that thing that she loved to do. She didn't have that thing that she constantly was doing every single day to keep her mind and her body active. But over the course of 10 years, she eventually developed dementia. Now, Peter Attia is talking about how at this funeral, everyone's talking about how it's a bit of a blessing that she didn't have to suffer from dementia very long. She ended up passing away maybe after a few years. And the only thing he can think about is, what about the 10 years that she spent basically locked away in her house, not being able to do the things that she loved the most? Now, again, keep this in mind, okay? At this point, I'm laying in bed. I'm obviously a husband and a father of one currently, but within the next 2 weeks, I'll be a father of two. And immediately I start to think about the fact that 60 is not that far off if you really think about it. I'm 33 right now, and I know it sounds like a long time, but 30 years, just even thinking about how quickly I feel like I got here, started making me panic a little bit. Am I that much closer to being at a point where I hurt myself and I can't get out of bed, or I hurt myself and all the things that I love to do and keeps me active goes away and I develop dementia? And I started thinking about the fact that my grandmother, for example, had similar things like dementia, struggled with obesity, and eventually passed away in a hospice, not really knowing where she was. My grandfather died of pancreatic cancer after having different cancers all throughout his life. I'm freaking out if you cannot tell, okay? Not because I'm gonna die, but I think because of the fact that I don't wanna die miserably. And this is where the book comes into play to help us out. You see, we all do this thing where we want to live a very long life, right? We all say, I'd love to live to 190, but do we really want to live that long, but not be able to be physically active, not to be able to play with our grandkids, not be able to do the hobbies that we love to do, just sit around the house and be miserable? I don't want that for myself, but what are the things that get in the way of that? And so Peter Attia talks about the four horsemen, the impending doom that constantly is galloping towards us at all times, that we can prevent and have preventative measures towards. And if we don't, well, again, we could die a miserable death. I know how that sounds, and I promise you that at the end, maybe we'll feel better. Now, the four horsemen of chronic disease affects 80% of the population. 80% of deaths could be circled and pinpointed to one of these four things. 1, cancer. 2, cardiovascular disease. Neurodegenerative disease, which like Alzheimer's, dementia, these kind of things that affect the brain. 4, foundational disease. It's kind of a spectrum from what I understand. It's like type 2 diabetes, fatty liver disease, like things like this. So we know the four horsemen, right? They're coming for all of us at some point. What can we do to prevent it? And I think the way that I understand the book, there's really 3 foundations to really take care of on any given day. Cognitive, which is obviously in our head. It's going to be our physical or structure to our body. How Are we able to withstand a fall, like the story I told earlier? Our ability to bend over, pick up things, the everyday life type of situation, and the emotional. Now, for someone like me, I, again, was looking at health completely differently. And as a result of that, I think I was negating, doesn't even matter the fact that I, work out and lift every once in a while. But because of the way I looked at it, I had my priorities wrong. And I think what I mean by that is the fact that, like, for example, since I was an athlete back in the day, I'm very goal oriented, right? So for example, when I lift weights, I want to get to the next level of fitness. I want to be able to go to jiu-jitsu and not get tired. Everything's very goal oriented versus I think the way that I should be looking at this is more about consistency. Because here's the problem with being goal-oriented for me. It inevitably happens. I do a strength program. I get through the program. Maybe it's an 8-week program. I hit certain PRs, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm good. I'm going to take a week off, and that week turns into a month. Just saying, not proud of it, but it's just reality for me. So another way of looking at it is, I don't have to hit PRs anymore. Again, I'm 33. What am I trying to do? Be the best workout person in the world? No, okay, that's not what I'm doing. What I'm trying to do is make sure that I'm around for a long time, but I still have my facilities, right? I still am able to do things with my son and my future daughter. And so one of the changes I'm going to be making as a result of reading this book is going to be thinking more about consistency rather than about achieving certain goals. The only goal that I should be concerned about when it comes to working out, in my opinion, based on the book, is did I work out every single day? It doesn't have to be even that hard. Did I go for a walk with my wife? Did I lift a little bit of weights? And I really love, this is a side note, but I remember listening to, I'm drawing a blank on it, Faraz Sahabi. I'm butchering his name. But anyway, he was the trainer of George St. Pierre, who was an MMA fighter. But he was talking about it. It's much better to, if you could do a max of 10 pull-ups, to just do 2 every single day. If you were to expand that out for a year, you're going to do way more reps of pull-ups than you would if you just max out every single time you do. Because if you maxed out your 10 reps, well, you got to wait a couple days to go again because of the fact that you're sore and now you have to wait. So consistency being more important than achieving certain goals. One of the other components, though, that I changed recently has been my attention to sleep. I think with most of us, we didn't really prioritize sleep. Well, honestly, most of us don't really prioritize sleep. We have the whole motto of like, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Problem with that is, sleep is incredibly important in more ways than we can even imagine, right? It's the way that our brain recovers after maybe a stressful day. It's the way that our body recovers after working out, so on and so forth. It's the way that we categorize memories, right? It's the way we do everything, and yet we don't prioritize it. So one of the things that I did is wrong wrist, I got the Whoop band. I've had it for maybe a year, but it's only until recently I really started paying attention to the sleep component to it. So as you can see here, I'm repping the Whoop. You can kind of see I'm in the green today. Good job, me. But for the most part, I would actually just look at the strain for the most part. And if it wasn't above a certain amount, I'm like, I need to work out harder. But really, the thing that I look at more, and I'm doing right now, is gamifying my sleep. So what I'm looking at is I'm trying to be in the green as much as I can, get the most sleep I possibly can so I can actually recover and feel better. And it's interesting how we try to power through being tired, especially mentally tired. We try to power through, and at the end of the day, we don't need to do that. All right. It's perfectly okay to not take days off, but to make sure you're prioritizing your recovery. So a perfect example is this: yesterday, supposed to get a workout in. And what I did instead is I just went on a kind of a light walk, right? I just made sure that I did that instead of lifting because my strain was pretty high the day before. My recovery was in the yellow, and I was feeling a little off, almost like I was going to get sick. So instead of what I would normally do, which is meathead my way through it and get a workout in and feel like crap the next day, I prioritized sleep and recovery, and now I'm in the green. So I'm good to go today. So that's what I mean. It's taking a different approach and looking at sleep differently than just something I just have to do for a couple hours. But instead, I want to be in the green. I want to get that reward for having the best sleep at the end of the week. Now, the third component of preventing, if you will, the 4 horsemen for coming for you, the emotional health component. Obviously, mental health is an incredibly big deal, but what's interesting is there's different ways to go about it. And what I've realized that my emotional health is directly related to my stress levels, right? Seems obvious, I know, but I'm an idiot. It took me a while to realize this. So the more stressed I am, the worse my emotional health is. And I realized pretty later on in life, but I am in control. I have agency over the way I react to certain things or respond to certain things. And so if I'm overly stressed, it's not because of the outside forces of the world. It's because of the way that I decide to interpret these things. So one of the things I've been doing to actually help with my mental health has been journaling and rating myself, not on how I feel, but how do I feel like I have responded to the day? Do I feel like I've taken those mental breaks and put myself in perspective? And say, is this really that important to freak out over? Is it even worth really stressing over X, Y, and Z when at the end of the day, I don't really, how much control do I have over this? And this is something that kind of goes back to a lot of people talk about this, was the idea of, do I have direct control over it? Yes, then okay, what can I do today about it? And if I don't have any control over it, well, time to let it go. So when it comes to emotional health, it's just taking agency. It's taking charge of the way that you respond to the world. By taking responsibility for my emotional state, I'm able to better gauge how my stress is, but also to mitigate that stress. And I think the final thing, I know we started off this video kind of negative and saying, hey, we're all going to die one day. But that thought of, hey, we're going to die one day is actually the reason why I think my emotional stress is not as high as it could be. Because think about it, right? There's Ryan Holiday that has that coin that talks about memento mori, right? Remember, you will die. It's the old Stoic thing that they would constantly meditate over, is the fact that we're going to die one day. Well, when you think about that, as negative as it sounds, it really puts things in perspective. We only have a certain amount of time on this earth. Do we really want to waste it worrying about stupid shit that don't matter? Do we really want to be arguing over things that don't really matter, and probably we're not going to really think about it after past tomorrow, right? So having that thought, reading a book like Outlive helped me really stop and think and go, man, is this really worth possibly getting sick over or getting unhealthy over? The answer is usually no. So with that being said, is Outlive one of the scariest books I've ever read? Absolutely. But is it one of the most important books I've ever read? I would honestly have to say yes. Mainly, again, because of the fact that I think we all know to some capacity about the Four Horsemen. We see it, but there's something about taking a step back, realizing that, hey, we're all, it doesn't matter how old you are watching this video right now. None of us are getting any younger. It's inevitable that at some point, we are going to leave this earth. The question is, that last 10, 20 years of our life, do we really want to have people take care of us? Do we really want to not have the ability to remember things, to not even know who we are anymore? Do we really want to be laying up in a hospital bed somewhere? Or do we want it even on our last and final days to be able to go on walks and see what we want to see? Hopefully, you have the same response as I have with this book. Wake up, be more consistent, take control over our own health, and maybe, just maybe, we can avoid the Four Horsemen as long as we possibly can. With that being said, I hope you got something out of this video. I hope you go pick up the books. Again, it's a really good book. It is a beast of a book, so again, I kind of recommend getting the audiobook. That's just me, though. I want to hear from you, though. Go down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on this. Is there anything that you feel like you could change in your daily behaviors that could prevent the Four Horsemen? Is there anything you have to do to think differently about the way that you work out, the way that you approach emotional and mental stress? Is there anything that in this video stood out to you that you can change today to impact your health in the future? Comment below, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff, and I'll see you all in the next video.